it? Do you want me to move it, and then you don't have to walk up and down every time? Of course, this is going to be here for the candles, but how's this? So when you come, I think we'll want to move this then. When you Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? No? Hello. Good morning. Try it again. Oh, there we go. Good morning, everyone. I'm the Reverend Ellen Quaadgras, and I am serving here at South Church in co-leadership with Kirsten Hunter, our Director of Lifespan Ministry, and in shared ministry with all of you. Shared ministry, this came up at the question box sermon. What is that? So, shared ministry means we all have a spark of the divine. Shared ministry means we all have something to give, and we are all invited to receive. And shared ministry means that you belong, and your wisdom, insight, kindness, and caring all matter to this place, even as I hope you also find wisdom, insight, kindness, and caring to take into yourself, to heal your heart if it needs healing, to lighten your spirit if there is a heaviness that needs lightening, even as we all seek ways to share our individual, irreplaceable spirits with our world. Welcome to everyone online, and welcome to all of you here in the sanctuary, where this whole summer we are celebrating creativity. The spirit within that sees, plays, moves, and can reimagine just about anything, perhaps especially that which needs healing and that which feels heavy. Our focus today is on poetry. One form the creative spirit can take, words that play and move, that capture a moment and reimagine it, capture something too big to explain in language and tells its truth back to us, but tells it slant, as Emily Dickinson once wrote. Poetry nudges in from the side, hovering above, moving under and in, through images and glances and words that point to essence, to center, to a truth too big for everyday language. But poems seem to capture it magically anyway. It takes courage to write poetry. It takes courage to share it. Perhaps it even takes a certain kind of courage to let it in, to drop our filters, and to be simply present to what is shown, to dip a toe in the unwinding river of creativity and see what in you might be touched. Today we have not only poems, but their authors willing to share them, willing to share something of their unique, irreplaceable spirit, their lens on the truth with all of us. One truth we lift up every Sunday, because it has been obscured, is the truth of the Abenaki and Pennacook people, past and present, who first stewarded the land upon which this sanctuary stands. May we honor their truth. May we honor this land. May we honor the wisdom and example of those who have cared for it over generations. And may we continue to learn, move, and act for justice in light of ever-growing awareness about this difficult past. On a different note, I want to let you know that Emily Samuel's family, sadly, we're very sad that she is moving. They are moving, but we're happy they're moving to a good place, Mount Desert Island. I couldn't figure out how to pronounce it before, and I still don't know how to pronounce it, but it's a place, and we're going to miss them. This is their last Sunday with us. Please give them your heartfelt farewell at coffee hour today. I'm grateful today for VEda, our fabulous worship associate youth member, and for all the wonderful poets who are so graciously sharing today, for Molly Petrik, good friend of Susan Adams, who's today's musician, for Jen Del Deo-Bary, who's going to be leading our Time for All Ages, for Ben Abbott wrangling our tech, and for all of you who are helping make this service possible in all the ways that you do. After our Time for All Ages, all young people will be heading downstairs for some religious exploration. If you've not already signed up your young person, please go down with them to make sure you do that. And after the service, all are invited afterwards for coffee and conversation. And I invite you to ask a question of someone you do not know well. And here's your question. If you had to write an ode to your favorite snack, what would the first line be? Good luck. We have large print hymnals in the back and assistive listening devices. Please ask an usher for assistance if you need that with either one. Please silence your cell phone if you have one. And it is now time for some announcements, which I'm also going to offer. So I'm going to stay right here and share some announcements with you. So for those of you who are sad about the end of the Olympics, don't worry, because there is a spiritual decathlon coming up in September right here at South Church. And I'm giving you a little sneak peek. So September, the theme is invitation. And we will be inviting you to invite a friend to church, which makes everyone go really silent like you just did. But here's the thing I'm asking you today, because many of you were yourselves invited to church, and I would love to hear your story. What was it like to be invited? How did it feel? Where has it led you? So if you would like to share your story about being invited with me, just come find me after the service, and I'd love to hear it. Announcement number 2, last spring, a group of South Church folk participated in an important 6-session conversation designed to widen our worldview, deepen our understanding of what keeps people apart, and learn how to be a better ally to people of color everywhere. For me, it was a moving, relationship-building, insight-generating time together. This fall, there will be another opportunity to participate in this experience. It's called Beloved Conversations. If you've wondered how to deepen your awareness about what could be more right in our world, and would like to build deeper relationships with others around conversations on race, come and talk to me and I can tell you more about it. Or come to worship next Sunday when participants in the class will talk about our experiences, what it meant to us, and give you a chance to imagine what doing something like this might mean for you. The sign-up deadline is August 30th, so I am planting the seed in you today. And now, we move on to the invocation.
Our chalice lighting words this morning are from poet Emily Dickinson, titled Tell All the Truth. Tell all the truth, but tell it slant. Success in circuit lies, too bright for our infirm delight. The truth's superb surprise, as lighting to the children eased. With explanation kind, the truth must dazzle gradually, or every man be blind. Now please arise in body or spirit to join me in reciting our mission statement. At South Church, we nurture spiritual growth through worship, learning, and community. We celebrate the worth and dignity of all people and inspire one another to act on our faith in the larger community. For me, having a creative outlet is like a hermit crab having her shell. Access to a moment of calm, acquired through art, is my shelter, protecting me from the chaos of my ocean. It always has. Ever since I could write, I've composed stories whenever I needed that break, my own homemade therapy. Bits and pieces of my world, projected or imaginary. My sea was particularly rough in the spring of 10th grade, when my track season was starting to escalate. I had never controlled as much anxiety before. It was my doing. I had begun to challenge my abilities, running harder and longer because I realized my potential, and I'm stubborn, so I had to go after these opportunities that came along with it, or I would never, ever sleep ever again. And track and field is not a serene, peaceful, even sane sport. The average track high school athlete wakes up before 7, goes to school, takes a few quizzes, dedicates their brain to learning or at least not falling asleep, a skipped breakfast, a mediocre school lunch, agonizing over bending into starting blocks, shaky hands, runners to their marks, set, go. Competitions are usually around 5 hours of anxiety, butterflies that suffocate, of starting pistols and coaches screaming race times into your ears. Yes, we chose this, but it is still so hard. I found myself engulfed in my season, a 15-year-old hardcore dedicated to a sport she was not going to be pursuing 2 years later, with a family and team who would love her whether she won or not. I was exhausted with my own expectations of perfection. Exhausted with balancing 2.5-hour practices of gruesome workouts every day with homework and sleep and life. Exhausted from dwelling on race days every single day of the week. I felt like all I did was go to school and run, worrying all the time. So one May morning at 7:15 a.m., as I was riding the bus to school, I opened my notes app and began to write. It's the time of year where the lilacs are fading, and I think sort of maybe so am I. Because as they darken to an intense indigo, I watch myself feel less and less alive. I remember the times movement was joy, the memories just before my hazel eyes. Where'd all the time go, Dr. Dog cries. I nod my head, just too tired to sigh. Wait a second. As I breathe, don't pass me pie. I'll catch up. I'm not weak, I'm just fried. Too tired from the constant supply. The repetition that runs me dry, here where I try and try. Poetry sheltered, tired, slightly dramatic young VEda from the chaos of her own thoughts, providing me with a safe place to wait out the storm I needed to have. An outlet so I could continue to challenge myself while maintaining perseverance through balance and a creative pause, a time where I could catch my breath. Now, please stand in body or spirit and join me in our opening hymn, number 108 in your gray hymnal, My Life Flows On in Endless Song.
Okay, it's time to invite any kids who would like to be part of this Time for All Ages, as well as any adults who would like to come up with us. All kids and anyone else who would like to are invited to come right up into this space. So Reverend Ellen and I had a really nice conversation a few days ago about how with poetry, it's really cool how I might get one message from a poem, and Reverend Ellen might get a completely different message from that same poem, and each person here might have a different message. And it's kind of like we have all these filters inside of us that we grow through our whole lives, and the poem passes through this filter, all these filters, and kind of light up these truths that are inside us. Sometimes it lights up something that we don't even know is in there, a wisdom that we didn't even know we had. And that can be true for poetry and music and paintings or any visual art. And it can be a really special way to have a spiritual practice of finding out what's inside. And so I thought of a project for our Time for All Ages today. I don't know how many people are familiar with blackout poetry, but it's where you have a page of text from a book, or it could be from a news article, or anywhere, a full page of text, and you scan through it and allow certain words to kind of grab your attention. And then you can go back and keep those words and remove all the rest of the words as a way to create a poem. And so I invited some people to do this project, and I told them they could spend a very long time on it or a very short time. They could make it decorative or very plain. And I was curious about how those would be similar and how they would be different. And so we have 5 different blackout poems. This is the page everybody started with. They all started with this page from a short story book of Roald Dahl stories. And let's see how they came out. So VEda made one. I'll invite VEda to read hers. And you can see it on here while she reads it.
Okay. Stop, begin, sleep, listening for the moment for a while. To the window, on the sky, fell thin, many minutes, searching moon, stars, God, turned, sat down, overhead, procession, sky, silent frost, countryside holding breath, noise, soon, battle, sleep, off gone into gardens, home, stood still, same, here strangely moment, whose had her face, eyes drawn, seemed.
All right, here's the next one. This is an anonymous one from someone who is not here today, from another teen in our community. This one says, she lay still, listening. For many moments there in the cold, hearing the noise. She pulled the blankets round her. The noise was great. For a long time it continued. Then it was over, the night silent. Oh, thank you, but she did not sleep. The next one is from another person who is to remain anonymous, who is not here today. This is an adult in our community. It came close, the bedclothes on her shoulders, wrapped like a shawl. The night frost holding its breath, the night strangely silent, the bear had gone. And Maisie made one. You can bring your friend if you would like.
Right at the beginning, she had been still, She sat for many minutes in the cold, hearing, looking. The bright moon pulled her bare feet into the black, and she continued into the night silent. The frost heavy on the field, the sky knew what it was. Stop talking in order to listen. Look up into the sky. At night, the people who hear become easy and gathered.
And we have one more from Rebecca. To be filled with a great and right beginning, woman had to place her hands into the sky, and over her shoulder, over the thin night, said aloud, "Oh, keep safe the blanket and shawl, bare feet and arm. Push forward the noise for a whole country's breath." An army, aching all along, heard the noise and knew what had gone to sleep. A battle had stopped their talking. Houses turned into gardens. Tents stopped their shouting. Factories stood still on the road. Listening, it was always the same. People who hear become strangely easy to bear. Woman in an armchair did not sleep, her face drawn tight and gathered over you. So they all started with the same page, and they all came out really differently from each other. I heard some words the same. I heard other words that were unique to poems, and the messages were all very different. And I think that's a really cool example of how we all receive and filter and then send things back out into the world in beautiful ways. So now, any kids are invited to come downstairs for some exploration.
It is now time for the offering, the time we take to support the impactful programs South Church offers. Donations can be made in person, online, or by mailing a check to the 73 Court Street offices, or by using the Venco app. During the month of August, our collection will be shared with Crossroads House. Crossroads House provides emergency and transitional shelter to families and individuals from southern New Hampshire and Maine area. Founded in 1982, they provide unhoused people with basic necessities, as well as the tools and guidance they need to return to permanent housing.
I want to begin our time of prayer and meditation by letting you know some sad news about the brother of Mary Banach. Her brother had been ill with cancer and entered hospice this past week. Mary and her son were able to fly out to be with him just in time, and were there with him when he died. Please hold Mary and her family in your hearts as they process this difficult news. And if you are going through a difficult time of any kind, please let me or Kirsten know, or let someone on the pastoral associates know. We want to support each of you, any of you, in your hard times too. You can find me after the service. You can email me. You can email one of them. You can fill out a card that's in your pew with a pastoral request, and you can place it. You can hand it to me on the way out. Prayers are like poems. They are glimpses into truth, a bigger truth, a sometimes harder truth than we feel we can handle. Prayers are a way to tell all the truth, but tell it from another place, to tell it slant, from its essence or from above or through love's spirit from the heart. What follows is a prayer that was gently handed to me by a member of this congregation 2 Sundays ago. It was written by Rabbi Naomi Levy and Rabbi Rachel Kobrin and adapted by Rabbi Kaya at Temple Israel just down the street. It was originally about war in Ukraine. I asked Rabbi Kaya if I could broaden it so that it might include other brutality that is raging in far too many places right now. She said yes. Let us gather our hearts and minds for these words, adapted from those. Source of life and peace, we pray for the well-being of all the people suffering in lands torn up with violence right now. We pray that the panic in the streets will give way to the sound of children playing, that the sound of sirens will give way to songs of hope. We pray that the world community will unite in a bond of love and strength and support so that armies lay down their weapons and finally retreat. Spirit of love, please help all who make decisions about war to see and feel the common bond of humanity they share with the people who are hurt by it. Help them see the children as their own children, the mothers as their own mother, the fathers as their own father, siblings as their own siblings, all kin as their own kindred family. May diplomacy become a path to peace. In a world that is struggling, swirling, tumbling, may we not lose hope. May we trust that it is in the darkest moment of night that light finally breaks through and shepherds in a new day. May we help form that light. May we each trust that our acts of love and kindness, no matter how small, help the dawn of a new reality begin to finally break. Spirit of life, infinite mystery, love at the center of the universe, hear our prayers, hear the prayers of the parents, of the children, longing for safety. Help to make peace possible through the work of our human hands and through the gifts of our own hearts. May it be so. Amen. As the music begins, I invite you to reflect on these words and on all that is in your heart today and in your world. If you would like to light a candle during this time, please feel free to come forward and do so. I'd like to share a poem from Billy Collins called The Trouble with Poetry. The trouble with poetry, I realized as I walked along a beach one night, cold Florida sand under my bare feet, a show of stars in the sky. The trouble with poetry is that it encourages the writing of more poetry. More guppies crowding the fish tank. More baby rabbits hopping out of their mothers into the dewy grass. And how will it ever end? Unless the day finally arrives when we have compared everything in the world to everything else in the world. And there is nothing left to do but quietly close our notebooks and sit with hands folded at our desks. Poetry fills me with joy, and I rise like a feather in the wind. Poetry fills me with sorrow, and I sink like a chain flung from a bridge. But mostly, poetry fills me with the urge to write poetry, to sit in the dark and wait for a little flame to appear at the tip of my pencil. And, along with that, the longing to steal, to break into the poems of others with a flashlight and a ski mask. And what an unmerry band of thieves we are, cut purses, common shoplifters, I thought to myself, as a cold wave swirled around my feet and the lighthouse moved its megaphone over the sea, which is an image I stole directly from Lawrence Ferlinghetti, to be perfectly honest for a moment, the bicycling poet of San Francisco, whose little amusement park of a book I carried in a side pocket of my uniform, up and down the treacherous halls of high school. I love this poem because if you had asked me when I was walking the halls of my high school what the problem was with poetry, I would not have said the problem is that it makes me want to write more poetry. I would have said the problem with poetry is that my high school English teacher is making me read it and write it in the first place, because I felt like I didn't know how. But these days, I like being invited into Billy Collins' poetry perspective, because I have found over these many years since I took that first class that poetry can be joy-filled, like a feather in the wind. And I have found it can be sorrow-evoking, like something heavy flung off the side of a bridge. I have found that when it warms my heart or frees my spirit, I do want more of it. Might want to multiply itself, might want it to multiply itself like those baby bunnies. And poetry, I am discovering, may even be accessible to us all, even for me, which was confirmed when Jen D.B. asked me this week if I would write some blackout poetry, which I did, although I carefully scoffed it away so that it did not actually end up making it into the Time for All Ages, but I did do it. And perhaps those who also stepped up to this particular challenge also found that it's more possible than they had originally imagined, and perhaps found, as I did, that it's not so much about the words, but a state of mind, perhaps, a certain quality of attentiveness to the moment, to whatever is right in front of me. An attentiveness, I realized, whose essence is love. A willingness to touch a tender spot in me and communicate that place somehow to you. How does it work? I have no idea. But I imagine creativity as a river that runs beneath my feet or flows through our hearts, and then poetry invites us into it. Or maybe poetry comes from that river, or maybe both. I don't know. But either way, something magical can happen. A river of spirit that runs through everything in us and around us that can, I suspect, if we let it, turn everything, brings love that can turn everything into itself. Today, we have 5 wonderful poets sharing their poems today. And so as to allow the poem to land, to let it flow in and through that river, I have asked Joe McEachern to play a short interlude between each piece so that we can take it in and savor what we've heard. There is also a handout, or if you missed the handout, there is a QR code right in your order of service with the text of each poem in case you'd like to take them in visually while you listen.
Good morning. I'm Mackin. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Great. Thanks, everyone, for coming. I got hooked on writing poems in 3rd grade, maybe like VEda. And my first year out of college, I learned that it was no way to make a living. But even though I have spent years of my adult life writing more practical things and that would earn some money, I've continued writing creatively and enjoying it and using it as a way to understand life and myself and look at them closely. In college, in a workshop I took with a very accomplished poet, he told us that when a poet is writing a poem, the meaning should be just a little out of the poet's reach. And in this poem I'm about to read you, my imagination did take the reins. And I'll let you see what you think. The dreams of trees. The rains this summer, enough to launch an ark, confused the trees into dreaming of immortality. Even the old trees grow taller. Their branches sway and flutter, green and youthful in the late October air, with no thought of death, no ceremonial reds or oranges. No yellows flourish pale against the deep blue sky that made driving certain streets in fall like driving into a photo negative. The trees dream on, their acorns more than ever before, rat-a-tat day and night on our roof. More leaves, too, says the man who cleans our gutters as he gets off his ladder. Dear trees, I want to say, as I walk beneath their green majesty, humbled by longing. As I walk with my scars of childbirths and cancers. Poor, dear trees, I want to say, slowing to match the gait that matches my husband's gray beard. I know.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay. I'm Suzanne Laurent. I'm from Portsmouth. And I wrote this poem in memory of my mom. She grew up one of 5 siblings in a very poor Cambridge tenement. Winters were harsh, and they all slept in their winter coats. My grandmother used to tell them they were lucky to have icy splatters on their windows in the morning because they were visited by Jack Frost. In spite of all this, my mom loved winter. I was one of her 3 children, and each winter we took turns walking at dusk during the season's first snowfall. My mom died of cancer in 1993. This is for you, Mom. Snowfall. One of my mother's last wishes was to smell winter after a late March snowfall. It was always special as a child to be the one whose turn it was to walk with her the evening of the first storm of the season, making new footprints around the snow-muffled neighborhood as streetlights came on, creating magical misty halos. She said snowflakes were angel kisses as we lifted our faces to the sky. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alice Timmins, and I wanted to write about love. And there are so many ways that love can be defined. The Greeks loved to name things and decipher them and parse them out. Agape was love for everyone. Philia was deep friendship. Family love had a name. It was storge or storge. Playful love was ludus. Pragma was long-standing love. And Aros got a name. It was for passionate love. Well, I've written so many different poems, and many of them touch on love, but I actually haven't written very many on that fun last one, passionate love. So I thought, I'll share one with you. It's called Aros in Blue. And it came to me one afternoon when I was sitting on my screened porch near the river, and the river was doing its laughing thing, and there was mist, and the leaves were doing their little thing, and I was quiet, and I was musing, and I was thinking about the complexities of my own life and the texture that has come into my life. And this poem began to write itself, I think. Aros in Blue. As if ivy tendrils scaling the porch screen could claim an old hollyhock heart, as if swaying goat-speared, nodding in their leafy pew, hear an evensong. If the softened rain could single out one drop, and if blue could always be blue until it's not. If still at such an age I could sense these pulsings, could fletch and quiver still. And if wishes tomorrow came through today, would I still know how? Thank you.
Hello, my name is B.J. Lates. Perhaps 2 to 3 months ago, Chris Kiper was sharing some thoughts about connections between receiving and giving. And I thought to myself, aha, I once wrote a poem about that. So I ran home and looked it up. Took me a while to find it. This poem is called Giving and Receiving. If there is to be a giver, someone must be gracious enough to receive. In the giving, we must learn to receive that graciousness. Oh, we want what we think is the upper hand. Let us be the giver, for then we can decide when and where and how. It takes so much more to receive. Humbleness, openness, love, and a grace beyond our control. The miracle comes when the giving and the receiving come together in God's love, in that sacred moment of oneness.
Hi, my name is Alice O'Trainer, and I must say that I don't pretend to be a poet. I probably have only written 5 in my life, and I've got 2 of them to share with you here. My first husband, unfortunately, was an alcoholic. And he could be a very lovely man when he was sober, but when he was not, he was often mean and very verbally abusive. And for any of you who have been in that kind of a situation, you know that you build defenses against that. You put walls up so that those slings and arrows don't hit you too squarely. Fortunately for me, my second husband, Michael, was my high school sweetheart, and he had been my best friend during those years. We got back together again on our 25th high school reunion from Portsmouth High. And about a year after we had gotten back together, I wrote this to him more as a love letter than a poem, but it's kind of in poem form. And I had handwritten it on stationery, so after that time, I didn't see it again, and I forgot all about it until a few months ago I was emptying some boxes in the garage, and there it was, in a box of things from his desk. So this is the poem. It's called The Key. You hold the key to all the places in my heart where love abides. Long ago in our youth, we stored away the many treasures true love brings, learning together the meaning of sharing and caring for another. Torn apart, the treasures were abruptly locked away, hidden from view as we traveled life's course on separate paths. Seeking to find them once again, unsure where to look or how to search, uncertain that they really did exist at all. But they were there all the while, awaiting the one entrusted with the key, far richer than remembered or imagined. One by one, you've opened each sturdy lock with your words, your tender touch. Together, we've looked inside to find peace, calming and soothing and healing, acceptance, full and complete, companionship, warm and comforting. Joy swelling like waves against the shore. Hope for a future rich and full. Completeness of one joined with another. Love, sweet and gentle. Life, the will to embrace it all. Unfortunately, Michael lost his life 7.5 years ago from a brain tumor, and the grief was devastating. But sitting in this room a few weeks ago, you may remember Jesse Lohr was at the pulpit, and he talked a little bit about poetry and about haiku, and was talking about the 17 syllables of a haiku poem. And my apologies to Jesse, I shouldn't have been sitting there doing this in my head, but while he was talking, my head was writing a haiku poem. And these are those 17 syllables. My grief has morphed into a pearl, held deep within, wrapped in memories. Thank you.
There is a river that runs through everything, a river of creativity, a river of spirit, a river, I dare say, of love. A poetic attentiveness to what is that comes from love, connects with love, and shows everything it beholds through the eyes of love. Love turning everything into itself. Let us join together for our closing hymn, number 1007 in your teal hymnal. There's a river flowing in my soul. Please rise in body or in spirit.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
There is a river of creativity, of words, a river of blue, of snow, of glimpses, of wisdom, of trees and pearls, wisdom of giving and receiving, the sacredness of true love. May we allow that river to turn everything into itself as we let love flow in us and through us. May it transform us and everything we touch. And after the postlude, I invite you to share with your neighbor, yes, an ode to your favorite snack, as that river of love flows through you into creativity in that conversation. Or you can say hello and just something that stood out to you from this morning's service.